Okay. So have you ever wondered, like, if we've actually, like, really cracked that glass ceiling? The one we always hear about?
Yeah.
We're going to take what we call a deep dive today into some really interesting research about women in those, like, top business roles.
Okay.
And you know what the findings? Well, they might just surprise you.
Oh, interesting. I'm all ears.
All right, so we're looking at this recent study from the Pew Research Center, okay?
Yeah.
And it's based on a pretty big survey they did, representative of U.S. adults.
Sounds thorough.
It is, and it's fascinating.
Yeah.
So, like, we all know that there are more women than ever before in these big, powerful positions, CEOs, board members.
It's true. We see those headlines all the time.
Right, exactly. But the thing is, we're still a long way from, like, actual equality. Like having the same number of men and women at the top.
Right. Equal representation.
Exactly. And that's what we're going to dig into today. Like, what do Americans actually think about this whole situation?
Okay, yeah, that's the key. Isn't it perception versus reality?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So, like, is this slow progress just, a matter of time? Or are there, like, deeper problems going on that are holding women back?
Yeah. Are we just waiting it out, or is something else going on?
Exactly. Let's find out.
Okay.
In the data skies, we take our flight. Trends and numbers come to life. Colors and charts, they dance and play. Showing truth in a visual way. In GenderDecoded, we uncover truths and stories like no other. In the data waves we find the secret maps of humankind.
So the first thing that, like, jumps out from this study is the numbers.
Right.
The share of women in those top executive positions. Yeah, it's going up, but it's still way less than, their share of the overall population.
Yeah. Makes you wonder why that gap is still there, right?
Totally. And then it gets even more interesting when you break it down by, like, men and women, how they see things.
Right. Well, the Pew study found that there are some pretty big differences in how men and women view this whole, situation of women in leadership.
Oh, yeah, for sure. Like, get this, 65% of women, they say straight up there are too few women in those top spots. CEO, boardroom, the whole shebang.
65%? That's a lot.
It is. But now listen to this. Only 45% of men agree with that statement.
Wow, that is a huge difference in perception.
Right. And then, like, flip it around. Okay, 46% of men. They think the number of women in leadership is about right.
Right.
It's fine where it's at.
Interesting.
But only 29% of women feel the same way.
So basically, men are much more likely to think things are okay as they are?
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
It's like we're looking at the same picture, but seeing totally different things.
Right, like two completely different realities.
And, this difference in perception, it also shows up when you ask people about the future. Like what they think will happen.
Oh, yeah, because the study also looked at that.
They did.
Yeah.
So 55% of women, they believe that men are just going to keep holding more of those top leadership roles.
It's like they're not seeing that big shift happening anytime soon.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But on the other hand, you've got 54% of men who think, what equal representation, it's just a matter of time. It'll happen eventually.
So men are more optimistic about the future.
Way more.
Yeah.
And I think this really gets to how men and women see the pace of change,
Yeah, and maybe even what's causing the gap in the first place.
Exactly. Like, are we talking about, women just needing more time to catch up?
Right, or are there, like, deeper obstacles that we need to address?
Totally. And speaking of obstacles.
Yes, the study mentions those.
Yeah, it says that women are more likely to say that there are certain obstacles, that are big reasons why there aren't more women in leadership. But the study doesn't actually say what those obstacles are.
Ah, okay, so it leaves us hanging a little bit.
It does. It does. But I think that's a good place for us to, like, bring in our listeners,
Yeah, get them thinking.
Right.
Yeah.
What do you think are the biggest things holding women back in business? I mean, think about it.
Yeah.
Is it about, like, what society expects from women, Or is it the culture inside companies themselves?
Right. Those unspoken rules.
Or maybe it's that whole, like, old boys network thing,
It could be any of those, or even something else entirely.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Now, we don't have the specific obstacles from this particular study.
Right.
But research on this topic, it often points to a few common barriers.
Yeah, like what are some of the usual suspects?
Well, one of the big ones is bias. You know,
Ah, yes, bias. That makes sense.
like those assumptions people make without even realizing it about, who looks like a leader and who doesn't.
Right, and those assumptions often work against women.
Exactly. And then there's this thing called sponsorship, you know?
Sponsorship. Oh,
And that's where you have like these powerful people in a company who are actually advocating for women to move up,
yeah, like actively championing them.
Exactly. But the thing is, women are less likely to have those sponsors.
Ah, so they're missing that crucial support.
They are. And then, of course, we can't forget about work-life balance.
Oh, yeah, that's a big one.
I mean, the demands of those top jobs, they're intense, and they often clash with, the traditional expectations that women are the primary caregivers at home.
Absolutely. And all of these challenges, they don't just exist separately.
Right.
They're all tangled up together.
Yeah, it's like this big knot that's really hard to untie.
A complex web. So it sounds like we've made some progress, but
But we've got a ways to go.
we're still dealing with these deep-seated perceptions and problems in the system itself.
Yeah, and it's not just about like numbers and statistics,
It's about more than that.
It's about creating a business world where everyone has a fair shot, regardless of whether they're a man or a woman.
Absolutely. It's about talent and potential, not gender.
So it's about changing the whole landscape, not just the way we look at it.
Yeah, I like that analogy.
So here's a thought for you to take away from all of this, okay? Imagine you're in charge of a company.
Okay.
What concrete steps would you actually take to make things more equal?
Yeah.
Like what changes would you fight for to make leadership truly equitable, big or small?
That's a great question to think about.
It is.
I'm going to have to ponder that one.
Me too. Thanks for joining me for this deep dive.
My pleasure. Anytime.
It's been really eye-opening.
It has.
And all our listeners out there, keep pushing for change, and we'll see you next time for another deep dive.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.